I think it's really a matter of the internal structure, and it's really about the content itself, right, of the construct. And that's not an issue of consistency. So in a way, once you figure out that it's three dimensions, what did I say earlier? Then the dimension is the unit of analysis, and then you see if it's reliable or not, right? So dimensionality is one of those things that really, it's more about the content and the nature of the content of this. So it would fit more under validity is what I would say for those who said that. That is what I would say as well. Let's now go to a couple of other cans of worms, right? So I think I said that right, cans of worms, right? And so what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to get into, multi-trait, multi-method. You know what, actually, while we are on the topic, let's just do that because I think it fits. And so I don't want, so there's this idea of looking at reliability and validity, and the idea that, validity is kind of looking at something. Sorry, reliability is a correlation of something with itself. You have an item as a measure model, those 20 items are equivalent. How do they correlate with themselves as in internally or across time with the same item, right? And there's this idea of a multi-trait, multi-method matrix. And the idea is you look at correlations, and I just, created one, if I remember right. And you look at different methods and you look at different traits. And so, for example, P&I one means you used preference for numerical information and you looked at a self-report. Okay, and the diagonals are a correlation of something with itself. So the diagonals are like reliability. And then you have, a heterotrait, heteromethod triangle and heterotrait monomethod triangle. So if you look within self-reports, what's the relationship between P&I and need for precision? Okay, it's 0.65. Same method and different traits, and you get a correlation of 0.65. But when you use a different method, a diary method for need for precision, which is another scale I had created many years ago, and if you use a self-report for P&I, the correlation is 0.5. So how did we go from 0.65 to 0.45, right? And so just by using different methods. So is there something going on when you use the same method that leads to a higher correlation? And it's something about the administration. So one of the broader points I want to make is how, no matter what you're measuring the content of something, and you're also capturing how that person responds to the method. So if you take multiple choice exams, right? It's not just what you know that's being measured. It's how good you are with multiple choice exams. It's always, as as is referred to in past literature, it's always that combination between a trait and the method that you're using, right? And it's you cannot unpack the two. You're always using a method to get at the trait. And so you have this, and then you have heterotrait, heteromethod triangle as well. And so, you can look at the same method, different traits. You can look at different traits and, different methods and so on. So these are different ways of unpacking and looking at convergent validity. By the way, we talked about convergent validity is P&I1 and P&I2. We haven't come across that yet. Using different ways of measuring the same construct. Do they converge? 0.75 is an indicator of convergent validity. Okay. You think that P&I and NFB should be related. NFB is need for precision. That's nomological validity. You think social desirability and P&I shouldn't be related. That's discriminant validity. And the diagonals are the reliability, right? So you have lots of different things going on with this multi-trait, multi-method. But I just wanted to touch on that. I want to say a couple of other things which are cans of worms as well. And which means I'm going to go back a little bit and at least close one can of worms, right? Or try to close it, I should say. One of the questions I asked you was on the inter-item correlation. This is the average inter-item correlation. And it's 0.3. And so when you come back to this, what I wanted to say, one of the reasons that was given was, it was more for the number of items. right? For the number of items, one of the reasons given was this idea that basically fewer items, lower alpha, and the number of different reasons given, such as more variance explained and so on. So that was another issue that you were looking at as well. The point of this is that if it is very high, then you might as well ask the same item again and again, right? And remember domain delineation. You want to cover the different domains. And what do I mean by that? Well, we said there's enjoyment of math, and there is this, and there is that, and so on. We said there are all these different things going on, right? And so if you said, I like the use of numbers, I like the usage of numbers, I like using numbers, and you have 20 items, you'll get very high intra-item correlation. But what have you done? You've narrowed the domain to just one subdomain. This is the trade-off between reliability and validity, right? So the more you capture the full domain, the more you're capturing different things, and you're really looking for an intra-item correlation. People will give you rules of thumb. They'll say 0.2 to 0.4. Obviously, all those rules of thumbs could be, changed. For example, when you look at some of the ACT and all of those things, sometimes you'll get even lower correlations. Depends, because it's one part of one large domain from which you're capturing questions, because you want to represent the domain. So that's the trade-off. So if you want very high reliability, there are many ways to get there, but then are you really capturing the domain, right? And the reason I mentioned this is when somebody said 20 item scale has higher alpha than 5 item scale, because it covers a broader range of the domain. Well, if it covers a broader range of the domain, it'll have lower alpha, right? Because it's a trade-off. If it covers a narrow part of the domain, it'll have a higher alpha. So that's not a reason why the 5 item scale has lower alpha, right? And it's really something I wanted you to look at intuitively rather than in a formulaic way. But it's very interesting how as the items go up, there are so many different ways that the items can covary and capture that non-random error, so to speak, that covariation, and so on. And that is why if we sat together right now and put together a 20 item scale, generally speaking, it's going to start off with reasonable alpha. Now, of course, whether it shows internal structure and validity, those are all further tests, but we can generally put together something that has some level of consistency, provided there are enough items. So if you're looking at a scale with a lot of items and they just tell you alpha, I mean, what have they really told you, right? Coefficient alpha is one of the easier things to do. But I think we should set a higher standard. And, I would say this to you, you are from very different disciplines. So if it turns out that you think, what, in my discipline, there's more room for improvement, then you get a distinctive advantage. If you are better at, the measurement side and you can do this to a better, that's one more source of a distinctive advantage for you, because different disciplines emphasize this to different degrees, that's for sure. Okay. So that's part of what I wanted to say. So far, what I wanted to say is that we have looked only at one construct. So, because for example, I see things like, common method error and so on. What I call common method error is across measure correlational systematic error. So in my language, I already told you, with random error, idiosyncratic, generic, within administration, across administration. There is an error assignment I'm going to share with you. We'll send it to the other material today. I want you to just try it out, because if you try it out and you get interested, that is an assignment that I developed the very first time I taught this course. I think it was 1992. And the idea there is, if you to me, that was how I made a lot of things nuts and bolts, right? And really, once I had that, that's how I took this whole journey. And so I want to send that to you. And if you're interested, because, maybe the workshop, where it could be a shorter workshop, like maybe a couple of hours, but I would go over the different types of measures, and I would start linking it across measures, because then we start getting at method variance and so on. But again, I think this has set up a number of other things that, we could be doing as well.